Okay, thank you, all of you, for attending this second in the series of little discussions or lunchtime sessions here in the library to just pay some credit and attention to the fact that reading has been spotlighted and highlighted this month, and following on from last week's wonderful exploration of To Kill a Mockingbird, which Julie brought us through. Today we're moving on to an opportunity to hear our own Sarah Bawazir, who first came through the doors of this university fully 10 years ago as an undergraduate student, and then went on to complete her master's in electrical engineering, and whose signature at the bottom of her KU email now lets us know that she's migrated over to bioengineering, where she's a lab instructor. And it's all the more, I guess, exciting for us to know that Sarah declares herself not to be a reader. You'll hear more about that.
I'm being honest.
But we'll hear a little bit more about that, which just proves that sometimes you might not always find reading. Sometimes reading finds you. And by good chance, a gift of a book that was given to Sarah has prompted her now today to be able to welcome us into her world of reading as it's manifest in the book. I'll just simply give you the title of the book, and it's really intriguing subtitle, and after that I'll pass you over to Sarah. So the title of the book is Braving the Wilderness, and there's a sort of another little bit of text on the front cover which tells us something about its content, along the lines of the quest for true belonging and the courage to stand alone.
Yes.
So to explore and unfold a little bit of that and tell us something more about Sarah's story is Sarah herself. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm so happy to be discussing this book, and as Doctor said, I'm not a reader. I don't identify as an avid reader. I read articles, technical articles and textbooks, but not fiction and non-fiction, even non-fiction, of this genre, like stories and storytelling and social science. So I got this book as a gift from a dear friend who knew that at the time I am going through a life or a self-defining stage of my life. And so she thought that this book was appropriate for that stage. And so I'll take you through what the book, like the main ideas of the book. At first, the author is struggling or is rejecting idea of how people define belonging. So what does it mean to belong to belong in this world? To what? To a group? To a country? To what exactly? And then her idol is Maya Angelou, and she says, "You are only free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place, no place at all. The price is high, the reward is great." So she always linked belonging to a place. But now her idol is saying that, no, you don't belong to a place. You belong everywhere and nowhere. How can you belong everywhere and nowhere, right? And then she takes us through how she made sense of that. So how did she go from totally and completely rejecting this idea of belonging nowhere and everywhere, into accepting it and thinking actually it is the right way to define belonging. So what is the right way to define belonging? To belong is to truly belong to yourself, to represent yourself authentically, not 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 portraying, let's say, traditions or what people are expecting of you. No, you present your true self every day to everybody, and that's why I started by saying I'm not a reader, right? I'm presenting my true self to you. And yes, and so she then goes on to say what are the tools that we use to navigate through this belonging, and what does it. So now when you represent your true self and not what other people are expecting, it's like you are in the wilderness, and here comes the title, Braving the Wilderness. So now I choose to be myself, and I know you will disagree with one and two, but I go ahead and do it anyways. So I am in this wilderness, and in wilderness, okay, we are afraid. There's no certain path. We make our own path, and then it's worthy because at the end, so when you go to the wilderness, you navigate through it, and at the end there is a high reward, like a breathtaking view, for example. So it is at the end, you took the courage to go through the wilderness, to be alone, and then you got the reward that of a life that is truly rewarding or fruitful to you, a meaningful experience.
So it's almost, I suppose, the image that we have frequently of the journey of discovery, that it's your path. It's not following necessarily the path of another.
True.
And there's stories told in all cultures, whether it's African or American. I mean, traditionally and classical, of adventures in which the adventurers enter into the forest, or they enter into that life journey, but they do so really at the place it's described as, you enter the forest at the place which is darkest for you, and you don't enter the forest in courage in a group. You do so individually. And if on entering the forest you find a path laid out in front of you, you know that's not the way, because someone's taken that route already. And where you stumble, there lies your treasure. There you fall, if you like. So I guess she's sort of tapping into some of these universal challenges which are narrated in so many stories.
Sure.
So her own. I mean, is she a popular writer already? Before she wrote this book, what would we have known her for? What were her colleagues? So what is it that she does professionally, for instance?
She's a social scientist,
Yeah.
and she is also a professor at the University of Houston, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been doing this research on empathy, trust, and belonging for the last 16 years. So this book is actually the results of her reflection, of her experience in social science for 16 years.
And you said that the book, it just fell into your hands, or you turned around and there it was. And how did you come to? Because you've already told us you wouldn't have been going looking for this book.
Yeah, true.
So
I like
how
the
did you get
idea.
the book?
I like the idea of reading books, but I've never really finished a book. Never ever in my entire life. But yes,
Except for this one.
except for this one. And so why I continued reading this book? Okay, it was a gift from a friend. So why I continued reading this book? At the very beginning of the book, there was something that I identified with from previous experience. So she says, so this part, sometimes the most dangerous thing for kids is the silence that allows them to construct their own stories that almost always cast them as alone and unworthy of love and belonging. So she was talking about her time when she was a kid, and some event happened, and then nobody explained that to her. The adults, they didn't talk to her about this. And I related with that because we had the death in the family, and I was, I think, maybe 7 years old, and nobody really explained to me what does this death of my brother mean. We were expecting for 9 months, and then there was nothing, and then nobody told me anything except for my grandmother, who said he went back to heaven. Why did he go back to heaven? As a child, you would think, oh, maybe he doesn't want to be my brother. This is how the mind of a child thinks. And so so this part, I was like, this writer has something to say. We share, I think, some common qualities or some common experiences. So maybe I'll gain something from reading this. And maybe this time around, I'll finish the whole book. And I was saying before that I like the idea of reading books, right? And I buy books. I read the first few pages, but nothing really captures me. But this, because it has like a personal touch to it. She also says that looking back, she wept for the girl that she couldn't comfort back then. And then she wept also for the parents who weren't equipped to deal with the pain of vulnerability. So from this, I learned that whenever I have children of my own, if there's an event or something that they couldn't understand at that time, I'll try my best to make it, to explain it to them in ways that they would understand.
So, if I'm lost in the wilderness all the time, like, what are some of the kind of pointers or directions or maybe little lights that she might light up for me in your reading of the book?
Yeah, so she mentions trust as a very important thing. First, trusting yourself and trusting others. And how would you achieve this trust? She has like 7 steps of how to achieve this trust. By the way, the book is not very straightforward, and it's not, although she says it's seven things or 7 steps, but she doesn't just give it to you. Yeah, and sometimes I think she has ADHD because she starts with an idea and then another idea and then another idea, right? But at the end, when you look back at the chapter, you say, okay, the order makes sense. The order makes sense now. So if you're lost if you enter the wilderness, what do you need? You need to be authentic, reliable, to have integrity, believe in yourself, true. And to also, one important thing she mentioned is that to be trustworthy, as in, let's say Patricia is my best friend, so she tells me a secret. I have another best friend. I shouldn't go and tell that friend what Patricia entrusted in me, right? Because this is how you weave the web of trust around you. This is how you navigate through the wilderness in your own correct path. So, in fact, she didn't give me anything new, but she narrated some of the experiences I had. She made sense of it, and she told it in a way that was meaningful to me. And reading the book, I know that I am on a right path. I'm not lost, although I thought I was lost and I can't make sense of things. But I'm not lost. I'm in the right path, and this is a common thing, that to be at a certain age to be questioning what are you put on earth to do, what is the whole purpose of life, right? And then she goes and also mentions there's some link to recent events actually, when she talks about dehumanizing people.
Yeah, earlier you were talking to me a little bit about that, how we construct or we put masks or identities onto others and they onto us, but to what benefit and to what end? And you thought that you want to say something about just the events of recent past few days, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't really usually idealize any person. I don't. I like some things about some people, but I don't say this person is my idol, because we are all human. We make mistakes. We all have shortcomings. But the other end of the spectrum is the fact that in our daily life we do dehumanize people, whether we realize it or not. We dehumanize them by calling them names, by calling them, or kind of saying they're...
You mean by stereotyping them,
Not
or
just
by?
stereotyping, no.
Is it
Let's
for our
say-
convenience so that we can?
So the specific example she gives
Yeah.
is that, for example, with the recent politics, some people were calling Donald Trump a pig. And she says, even if you don't agree with his policies, even if you don't like him or don't like what he's saying, you shouldn't be calling another human being an animal. Because with you dehumanize him, you are giving you are giving the others the thought that, okay, it's okay to hurt that person, kill that person, or be biased against that person.
And in Donald Trump's case, it's also insulting the animals. That was the badger.
No, that's okay. But what?
How old is the book?
It's just a few years old, 2017.
Just to move to push on that a little bit more though, because you did have a very I think a very wise observation. You had mentioned to me about this word or this idea of hate, of hating something or hating somebody, and why we shouldn't do that.
So she mentions a great story about a man who lost his wife in a bombing in Paris, I think. And so he was left with their, I think, 12 months old child. And he was saying, he wrote a letter to the person who did the attack, saying, a symbolic letter, saying that I will not hate you. Okay? You will not get hate from me. And also my son will not hate you. Because if we do, because if they hate that perpetrator, then they give him what they want, what he wanted, what he wanted. The power. He made him fulfill his target, which is instill fear in our hearts, to fear one another, to hate one another, to dehumanize others.
Yeah, that when you hate something, in effect, it has defeated you, because
True.
it controls
And
your aspect. Yeah.
And
but-
we see that in popular media
Yeah.
where Arabs or Muslims are portrayed as terrorists, which is we understand that it comes from a point of anger, a point of pain, from devastation, but we should address that before it becomes hate. We should also separate acts from people, okay? Let's not call the whole religion terrorists just because a few people did something. Hold those people accountable, yes, but do not dehumanize a whole group.
Because as soon as we do so, we're blunting and even blinding ourselves to the fine-grained, sensitive, perceptions that we should have as we survey everything around us. But as soon as we pull down those shutters or put up those barricades or whatever they may be, and generalize to that extent, we're blinding ourselves and we're denying our own experience of seeing the world in all its richness.
True, and
Yeah.
then we are allowing counter-violence. So like you saw the previous week, I think, or previous few days, there was an incident against Muslims. So it's because that person, because through the media, were portrayed as terrorists and dehumanized, he saw that it's fine to do this.
And
So,
to go back to this idea of surviving the wilderness, or even of braving it, I think, is it courage more than anything that the author is encouraging us to look for, or showing us how to achieve, or explaining the value of? If you had to sort of not summarize, but if you had to try to sort of bring together what one point, or one concentration, or one most driven motivation for the author, what would you say that is?
Yes.
As what's her message to us? If that's not too blunt a way of asking
So,
what the book has achieved for you.
her message is to encourage us to be brave, but not only that, but to also embrace vulnerability, not fear, vulnerability, to be vulnerable, and to tell and to show our vulnerability to our fellow human beings. This is how you connect. If you don't show your vulnerability, you're not connecting. So the whole book is about how do you find yourself or define yourself, and then how to communicate that with other people, to have integrity, authenticity, and to be who you really are, and not who you want other people to think you are.
Can I mention something here? I don't know how many of you know Sarah, but she's, I think there is a connection there, because Sarah does a lot of charity work, and I admire her for her enthusiasm and all of that, and I think that's why this title, this book, must have, it's very related to the things that is what you're
So the experiences, when you travel to different places and you see the results
So there's a
of
relation.
war.
And I wanted to ask you, did you read any other books?
Not yet.
But you might.
I will.
You may finish the second book even.
Yeah.
You can tell this is more like a textbook for you, because you
Right? Because I'm
This is
used
like
to
shocking
reading
to read.
textbooks. I'm used to reading textbooks, and so this is the only way I know how to read.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
however you access
Yes,
the
of
text.
course.
And anyone have any other comments or questions for our speaker today on the book? Yeah, please.
Yes. Have you read the book? So
So the
she.
question was: is there anything? How do we connect, or is there a difference between fitting in and belonging?
So she was struggling with this idea first, right? So she thought that true belonging means fitting in, and she was trying to fit into different groups. But then she realized it's not really fitting in. It's being. So she puts it in a really nice way. She says, true belonging is when you belong not only in a group, but also with yourself. You're the same. And to not give. So when you're saying fitting in, you're giving other people the power to reject you, maybe from this group. So, but if you belong to yourself, then you
Does that mean that you look to others to see elements they possess, which you also possess, and which you connect with? Or I can see how being yourself would be authentic, as you say, but if I want to still be a part necessarily, as I have to be, of a community, or of even in communication with others, can I do that only through looking at myself? if you get me.
Okay, we are social beings, human
Yes.
beings, we're social
Yes.
beings. And so, although some people think that when we become adults, then we should be autonomous and or like on our own. But in fact, no. For humans, what defines your experience in a better way is when others can depend on you for something specific. So if you be your authentic self and be known for one thing that you could provide to others, and if everyone does that, we would have a society that is integrated together.
Okay.
The way I see fitting in is not necessarily that you're actually happy. You're making other people say that you're part of us, but maybe you're not really being true to yourself. But belonging has a stronger meaning, I think.
Yeah.
Has more depth. Because you could be belonging to a group of people or to a family or to whatever, and you're still, you know who you are, and you're still part of you're yourself, but
Yeah.
you're still part of somebody else or
True. It's not mutually exclusive.
but fitting in seems to me as if it's just a matter of getting people to accept you.
Yes.
Not necessarily that
And
you're
checking
happy.
some boxes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you could be miserable but fitting in.
Yeah, perfectly.
So
So she explores fitting in versus belonging in the book. So I would recommend it for you. Fulfilled. You would know yourself and you would know what you need to be happy. And you would be acting, your acts will be in accordance to your thoughts. Not, not you having some different thoughts, but then you're doing what the society is doing just because you don't want to question some things.
so you have to be brave and different to make a difference.
And that's why wilderness, right? And she says, she goes further at the end of the book, and she says it's not only about braving the wilderness. What is the highest level? It's becoming the wilderness. And that's something I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Like, become the wilderness. How?
Almost Buddhist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Letting go.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the idea of there not being necessarily an dualism, I suppose sometimes it's termed, where the question as to whether we are separate from what is out there, or whether there is a
Yeah.
kind of a universe. Yeah. There's a lot in a little book,
Yes.
and probably more markers and
Yeah.
colored tags and
I want to share
highlights
with you
and
all
so
of
on,
the thoughts.
which is terrific. Sorry to go into another language, but if we go all the way back to some of the really, not the earliest of classical, but one of the classic stories of adventure, or not adventure, sorry, I got that wrong, of the wilderness and so forth, and the journey of discovery is I guess 600-700 years old now. It's Dante, an Italian writer, and it's an allegorical book which has many tales connected to all sorts of life lessons, and he starts that very first line of his first of 3 books. It translates easily, but it sounds so nice because it's he says nel mezzo del cammin di nostra vita mi ritrovai per una selva oscura che la diritta via era smarrita. There I am in the midst of my life and my way, and I'm in the middle of a dark forest, and the way of life is scattered, and from there he starts on the journey and looks for little hints and clues and directions as to how to in fact be part of that selva oscura, the dark forest, in the midst of all of the mysteries and challenges and adventures of life. And it seems to me like you've sort of that book looks like it's a book that you've been holding on to quite a lot. It's not like one of those super clean, books with dust on it somewhere. There's no dust on that book. It wouldn't have a chance to land on it for long, I think. And that's really nice. And when you speak to us about it, it really seems as if like the book is speaking through you and you through the book, and I think that's
And
really terrific.
it never happened before, but
Yeah.
I reread some chapters twice
Yeah.
and sometimes some chapters 3 times.
Yeah.
I never like to rewatch a movie or reread anything, but and every time I read it, it's like finding something new. This is one of those books.
Well, they say that you never read that a book of a certain type is never read the same way twice. That on each reading, perhaps there's something more to it. Are there any other comments that you'd like to share with us on it, or?
Let's see.
Because I know that you're afterwards you're going to say, "Oh, I would like to have mentioned something else too." We've talked about that before.
So to end, maybe I'll share the quote that to quote her, what she said at the end of her book.
Yeah.
She says, "I'll leave you with this. There will be times when standing alone feels too hard, too scary, and we'll doubt our ability to make our way through the uncertainty. Someone somewhere will say, 'Don't do it. You don't have what it takes to survive the wilderness.' This is when you reach deep into your wild heart and remind yourself, 'I am the wilderness.'" Wilderness.
Okay. I think we should stop there. That's really super. Thank you very, very, very much. I thought that was just terrific. And of course, we shouldn't forget also, on behalf of the library and Patricia and everybody, we'd like to just present you with that as just a little token of your kindness for having shared all of this with us, and it was really super. Well done. That was a super job. Thank you very much, really.
Another book for her.
The bad
You
news.
didn't know, huh?
The bad news is that there are lots of other books out there now, and
Yeah.
who knows? You're going to turn a corner or look around somewhere, and another
Yeah.
one's going to jump out at you, and
I think it's the beginning.
that's just the magic of it. It's just wonderful. It was like, I think last week when Julie had asked who hasn't read the book, and someone said, "Oh, I haven't read the book," and you go, "Oh." But then my reaction to that is, "You haven't read the book? Yay! You're so lucky. Here's a book you haven't read. If you do read it, you're going to get such enjoyment from it. It's like, oh, you haven't been to this place, or you haven't tried this, or you haven't tasted such and such. Well, that's there for you to do so. And hopefully in your wilderness, you'll find book trees and book bushes and book rivers and all sorts and so on. But to conclude, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was really great. Thank you. Well done. Really good. Well done.
Thank you.